Hello, everybody, and welcome to a wonderful week of the next issue. I'm your host, The Power Trip, and this week I thought I'd continue on from last week of kind of going over who is your favorite version of the Batman. Now, last week we went over several iterations that some of you do remember and some of you may not have remembered, especially because I know one or two of those only existed for one particular story arc, which was an amazing story arc, but they still didn't last very long, while others have had more than one attempt at getting to wear the cape and cowl. I'm speaking, of course, of Jason Todd and Tim Drake getting their one shot to really be Batman, or their version of who they would be as Batman in the Battle for the Cowl storyline. While Dick Grayson got to take on the mantle a second time after Battle for the Cowl, his first being the storyline Prodigal, which was an aftermath of the last time, or another time I should say, when Azrael, Jean Paul Valley, took over as Batman when Bruce Wayne's back was broken by Bane. All of these are great versions of Batman that range just in a whole spectrum of great, wonderful differences for story purposes. Azrael was brutal, he was armored, he was not lethal. He never really went out of his way to try and kill anybody until near the end when he really snapped. But until that point, the one and only major death on his hands was more because he was in the process of snapping and was kind of having some delusions, and it basically cost him the chance to save somebody. Far and away different from when Jason Todd was being his version of Batman, gun-wielding, quick to kill, who he thought Batman should be, all about vengeance. Now, Tim Drake had some fun playing on kind of a more of the old blue cape, lighter colored, more of the detective style of Batman. Tim Drake as Batman was definitely more of the focused on the world's greatest detective and using his brain over brawn for everything. He still has his martial arts skill, but it was definitely more of the crime solving than anything with that. And then, of course, you have Dick Grayson, who was more of a what would happen if you had this character that was similar to Bruce, but more lighthearted, more friendly, more willing to be part of a team and lead in a different direction than Bruce, but still be a similar Batman. Now, there have been two other Batmen that I left off that list last week that definitely have earned the right to be on that list, and I apologize for not having them on there. One is the very vastly popular Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis. This Batman just rose in popularity, mostly due to the cartoon series, and then in an ongoing comic, and then finally getting to become established in main DC continuity proper with Future's End. Now, what made Terry so fun was he came at a time when he's become older, Gotham has become darker, I should say, I'm sorry. Gotham's always dark, but darker without Batman being around. All of Batman's sidekicks and quote-unquote family members have retired, moved on, or died, and while the Justice League and a few other heroes are around, there's no one to take that spot of the Batman to scare these criminals. Anyone can bring them to justice, but somebody willing to put fear in them. And that's where Terry came along and brought a light back into Bruce's heart, where Bruce got to kind of take on the mantle of Alfred, something you would never really think you would hear there. Terry got to become the new Batman, and in similar fashion, bring vengeance onto his style of villains, but in his own different way as well. He was definitely more of a talker than Bruce, much more of a wisecracking hero. I guess you could say Terry was a good combination of, if you ever had Peter Parker taking up the mantle of Batman for whatever reason, that would be a good crossover there to say what Terry really was at that point. And then the last person I want to bring to the list is the newest person to become Batman, and that was Commissioner Gordon, who has been Batman for, good lord, about a year now, roughly, or at least a good large story arc here. I would say he became Batman right after Convergence. And it was in the aftermath of the brutal battle between Batman and Joker that everyone was pretty sure the original Batman had died in. And so Gordon took on the mantle of the Bat in his own way, bringing, of course, the what's dubbed as the bunny suit mech, and but definitely bringing that detective style back to it, but showing what Gordon can do. This former Marine that's not just an old grizzled cop that just happens to help Batman out and sometimes get saved. No, Jim Gordon has what it takes to be Batman. He doesn't have all the fighting skill that Bruce has, but he's no slouch either. He's been raised in the rough. He's come from this dark area. He's been in Gotham for a while, fighting the fight next to Batman the whole time. In a sense, he's been the protege to be Batman that no one saw coming. You could see where some of the Robins would fight to earn their way up, or in Azrael's case, kind of a similar intro there where they wanted to kind of just put somebody there that could take Batman to that next level that he wasn't ready to cross yet. But with Gordon, you never saw it coming. It's more of the sense of, here's this other person, very similar to Bruce in the sense of he wants to protect Gotham. Gotham's his home. Gotham's important. Gotham is everything. He fights with Batman, alongside Batman, to protect Gotham. And that's that extra sense there that you don't really see in the others. You know, Dick Grayson had the Titans. He's got Bloodhaven. Tim Drake now has the Titans, the Teen Titans. And Damian is starting to kind of come off his own as well. Jason Todd grew into the Red Hood attire and then joined his own team of the Outlaws. But no one stayed by Bruce's side as much and as long to protect Gotham and that home that they built and saved over and over again than Gordon. Now, of course, I said Gordon would be the last on the list, and while I was talking about it, it hit me. There is another quote-unquote Batman I would like to put on here as the final one. And I know some of you will say, well, that's not Batman. That's not Batman at all. Well, he is a form of Batman. It's the Earth 3 Batman, or Owlman, as I should say. Thomas Wayne, Batman's older brother. And this guy can be your favorite version of Batman if you want him to be. If you want the evil side of Batman, who still isn't Bruce, but with a twist there, you know, because he comes from the evil Earth, the Earth where evil wins. Evil's the dominant form. And we get to see this, what would Batman have been like had he been, well, evil? And a lot of people, you know, if they see Bruce snapping, they think, well, if Batman goes evil, he's going to snap, he's going to kill everybody. Well, this isn't Bruce, this is Thomas. He brings a different form of evil. What happens when Batman, instead of fighting for good to protect Gotham and everybody, is evil, but still fighting to protect Gotham? Not because it's his home and he loves it so much, but because it's his home and he owns it, and this is his house, and by God, no one's going to come in and take over his home. That's his. He owns that by right, and thus his part of the crime syndicate. Of course, him always fighting for leadership over Ultraman for this, as well as possession of a few other things and a certain somebody, but that's beside the point. This is still a form of Batman, and I know a few people out there that this is their favorite version of Batman. And if you ever watch the animated movie Crisis on Two Earths, or you read the comics Forever Evil, or even some of the older Crime Syndicate issues of Justice League and such, you can really see why a lot of people love this character so much. Well, that's it for me this week. I've got something special brewing for you next week. I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you next week for the next issue.